Welcome, everyone. This is Grandmaster Dr. Thor Templar, and we're going to discuss a very important area, which is the actual states of magical consciousness you need to be in to draw to you and send or project out and generally use for manifestation. Now, there's a great misunderstanding of what's going on here, and we talked about this in Foundation 5, I believe, which talks about trance states. Now, no manifestation happens unless it's in a trance state. You can't go from the common world or use common world perceptions to manifest from the uncommon or the higher self or the inner magical being reality. You just can't do that. Of course, this makes sense for a number of reasons. If we see extreme functioning and you just thought of something or decided to project energy at something and it easily manifested from your regular consciousness state, this would cause all sorts of problems. We also have to understand that no manifestation happens from your common mind. We've talked about this many times of how the toxic common mind, which has taken over your entire operating of your life, is disempowering you. The common mind was designed for common tasks, but since the way this entire reality works and enforced by those who run it, they want to keep you in the common, disempowered mind. They don't want you to expand into the actual inner magical being reality which manifests everything. These are critical areas, and this is going to be a small little series of trance-inducing or consciousness states of what is required to manifest. So, taking that in consideration, what do rituals do? Well, in classical magical rituals, or even in the use of biophysical psychic rituals, you are creating an altered state. When you form circles, light candles, sit in front of it, start concentrating on certain things, you're going into an altered state. Just as simple as that. There's really no power in these practices other than getting you into an altered state. If the practice itself was empowerment to itself, then anybody could do it and it wouldn't be a problem. People would be manifesting everywhere, and this just isn't the case. Then we get into the actual, of course, when we get into more biophysical empowerments, you're still doing things and supposed to be using all kinds of natural energies within your inner magical being to empower these thought forms and projections. You can use your breathing, you can use your chakras, you can use raw mental or inner magical being energy. This draws on core energies, etc. It doesn't really come from the mind. I mean, this is an overly used term that we've already discussed somewhat here, is the fact of how bogus the mind is. The mind's just a dumb imbecile that does dumb imbecile things. Then you have the brain that keeps your heart beating and your breathing, etc. The autonomic systems within your body that keep everything running. Then your mind comes in to do the tasks that are slightly beyond that, which is your normal day-to-day nonsense and worthless tasks you do all your life until you die. How nice. So, what you need to do is go into what we call mini trances. Now, we've talked about mini trances, or I've given you the instructions of how this works with the use of amulets and so many other tools of ours. So a lot of this has to do strictly with the fact that when you use a tool, you're going into a mini trance whether you know it or not. Visualization is a mini trance. But, getting back to rituals, as I said, that's what you are producing before you're doing something. Now, the longer you do any of this, the less empowering it becomes. And I've talked about this because what happens? You get bored within literally a couple of minutes. And what happens from that point on is the fact that you are disempowering yourself. You're at a point where You're decreasing in energies because of the fact that you are actually allowing the mind to come in and do its dirty little deed of drawing energy from whatever you are targeting into I'm hungry, I got to do this, I got to do that, and so forth, and draining it into and taking core energy for worthless tasks. And when this happens, you don't have the energy to do your mini trances to manifest. This is also must be understood that every thought that you think, every action that you take is draining energy from you. You need to channel this energy into something that has value. And this is where taking control of your mind and being a centered position is so critical. Everything comes down to centering and occult gym practices. From there, you pick what you want to manifest with, which is generally basic psychic training. So as we look at these things, we need to fully understand this procedure because this is the ultimate key to magical empowerment. It is not some words of power, some goofball little spell or ritual, some particular tool, or even using some powerful sigil or other item. All of these have certain amount of intrinsic power within them. Some have none at all. But if you cannot access that power, if you don't know how to draw it to you and then project it to your target, you're wasting your time, and that's what most people are doing and why they fail. So, mini trances are very, very important. So, a mini trance is the basic way that we recommend people use our amulets, which is the fact of thinking about it for a couple of seconds at the most, and I do mean seconds. If you think about it, let's talk about 3 seconds here, which is our new kind of tag energy line that we are looking into in terms of time. But here is 3 seconds, 1 1,000, 2 1,000, 3 1,000. Now, that may have seemed fast to you, but if you really listen to what I've just said, that's a fairly long period of time to connect to these instantaneous energies, these quantum physical fields that are all connected together naturally. That's quite a bit of time. Quantum physics, which has been proven by the schmientists, the goofball idiots of common science, to be a fact, and everything is basically working on this principle now. After years of ignoramus following of ridiculous theories and maybes and ifs perpetrated a lot by Einstein himself, which just didn't work, and he didn't have the self-esteem to come out at the end of his life and say it was wrong. So all scientists should be, at a drop of a hat, say, I'm wrong, here's the right stuff. They don't do that. All common science doesn't do that, and that's why they fail with everything they produce. So as we move on to these, we have to understand that's a long period of time. You don't need minutes and minutes of meditation and concentration because there is no such thing. After approximately a couple of minutes, you're psychically burnt out. Your core energies are almost completely depleted. You have no more energy to do anything. So all this stuff is nonsense. People go into meditative states to recharge themselves, not to add more projection. So you just don't have that energy no matter where you're pulling it from. People try and pull energies or condense energies in what's classically known as chi exercises, and this mostly for condensing. But once you've released it, it's out of you, it's gone. So it's a waste of time, and you don't need hours of concentration to do it. You're immediately connected to your target. It is done. It's finished. It's just as simple as that. So what you do in any type of magical practice is, and particularly with amulets, is you are connecting to that energy instantly and doing it frequently. Because as I mentioned, you're burned out almost immediately. So there's no use spending any greater time. Your mind comes in, causes all these problems, actually will draw energy away from your target because the mind will come in with its toxic, do-nothing, criticizing, negative energies and actually draw energies back to you from the target you sent it to. That's how evil and toxic the mind is. So you want to get this over quick and simple, and boom. The key to everything is very short periods of time of connection. We're talking about now, just to make sure, because it's difficult for most people to get into any kind of decent state, 3 seconds is now the pretty much the procedure, time that we set out to connect with it. Once you've done that, you move on. You can draw additional, you move on, and then within, if you wanted to space things, I would say you can do some drawings or go into mini trances, probably every 10 to 15 minutes, drawing in different energies or sending it out. Generally, you don't do that. I mean, when you're in a critical situation where you need protection or other things, well, it's recommended to do that. But if you're doing general work or you're drawing on energies for success or so forth, you're doing things a couple of times an hour at more critical times. Now, you can do it more than that. But in general, you're drawing on energies from amulets or doing any kind of rituals. That's all you need to do once you've done it. Now, you have to get into these trance situations quick, simple, and get out. That's the key to doing effective magical manifestation. You've got to, if you're spending all this time getting ready to do things, well, that's a problem. You know, I have to see this with people who went to work, who got to work half an hour early so they could sit there and drink coffee and smoke cigarettes. Well, that's a big wasted time. What you want to do is condition yourself to go into a trance instantly, do it and get out of it. Boom. You're in the trance instantly, you're out of it in 3 seconds or less. If you're not doing it that way, then you are wasting your magical empowerment. So, this is a critical area to understand, and we're going to talk about these different ways of functioning here that are so critical. But the whole idea is to do things for very short periods of time at very high intensity. When you connect to that, you're using high intensity energy to connect to that energy that you are seeking from your amulet. So you want to be psyched. It's a big, giant boom, and then it's over. You move on. That's the key to it, and that's how you draw or send huge amounts of energy to you or a target at a very efficient rate. If you start doing things longer, as I've mentioned, it's just a big waste of time and actually counterproductive. But you do need to get started. If you're going to just not go into a proper trance state, you're just going, oh, I didn't get that. I couldn't think for 3 seconds. So the whole idea is that if you're going to do that, well, you're going to fail as well. So it's high intensities for short periods of time, often. Now, I've said this time and time again, and these are words to live by. This is what works, people. All the rest of it is a bunch of nonsense. Wearing funny outfits, drawing circles on the ground, calling on entities that do nothing is a waste of time. You instantly, as an occult scientist, connect to energies, draw or send them, and you're done. Just as these teachings are now being abbreviated so everyone gets them at a deeper level, because guess what? You need to repeat these audios over and over again so you understand these concepts. And since they are short, you got no problem doing it. Repetition is the key to everything in life, and as pathetic, human, disconnected beings on the path of the great connection, the great gnosis, this is what works, and here's how it's done. I presented it all for you. Now watch for the others in this mini-series coming very soon.